Yeah. Here I come to save the day. Y'all know what it is. This let's get to it. And that's a tour with you because I always got you in mind. So keep that in mind. And I am King Sam, the people's champ. Ah, it's still Black History Month. Today is the 15th. It was Valentine's Day. What y'all do for Valentine's Day yesterday, man? I got a chance. It was happenstance, but I hung out with my mother and I hung out with my wife. I had a good day yesterday. I was out all day yesterday, and I actually celebrated somebody's 50th birthday. And it was free tonight, Noah. Out free tonight, Noah. I don't know if y'all from the Newport News area, and y'all know her. And I got to spend a little bit of time with the big homie, Big Newt, Elites Pro, right there on 368 Demi Boulevard. He gave me the cut, got me looking real good and crispy, y'all, as usual. And I found out that a friend of ours passed away. Big Tone Capone, originally from the Baltimore area. I didn't know him as well as E did, but he used to come to the shop and kind of, enlighten me on a few things because he was a little bit older than me, not much older than me, maybe 10 years or so, maybe a little bit more than that. But I looked at him as an OG, as a uh, somebody with seniority over me, put it that way. And I respected his knowledge, I respected his words, and I saluted him. So when I found out that he passed away, from heart issues, complications, and things, I thought it was some sort of joke or something. Like, there's no way. I just seen him. I thought he was gonna be in here today. Actually, chop it up with him, soak up some Jews, and he no longer with us. So send a shout out to him and his loved ones and his family, man. It's tragic. We never know when it's our time. And man, that Joe moved me. It moved me yesterday, and I just want to say rest in peace to him, Tone. Man, man. I was supposed to go to church today, but I didn't. I decided to stay home. After the yesterday I had, it didn't floor me, but it stirred up a lot in me, and I just ain't feel it. I ain't want to go. So here I am, right here at home. I decided to set up. I got my studio all set up, and it's Black History Month, so I wanted to get into a book report, y'all. Like I said before, when I was younger, we used to do book reports on Black History Month. Make sure we know who these people were that laid their life down for us, that sacrificed for us, that went through the struggle so we could have some of these civil rights. Um, and one of my favorite people to read about and to look up and hear about was the minister Malcolm X. Uh, I think he changed his name to Malcolm Shabazz later on in his life before he passed away. But Malcolm X, man, he was a historic figure. And when I was young, I just knew, the compulsory education that you get on them, which is, it's tilted in a certain light. And I have discovered that after I did my own research. But before I go into that, man, let me see if I can scroll through these pictures, man. Because I remember when I was young, I used to like to look at the pictures, man. And hold on, let me see if I can't transition that. All right, this is a picture of Malcolm X. This is the famous picture of him, y'all, standing by the window with the fire on. Let me see if I could get another one up there. Uh, this is a nice picture of him right here. Y'all like that one? Let me see if I can't cue up another. Uh, these all nice pictures of him. I enjoy looking at them. Let me see. Yeah, that's a nice picture of him. Y'all see all these pictures of Malcolm X, man. He one of our heroes. This man, one of our heroes. This Malcolm X before and after. This one they used to call him Dirty Red, Detroit Red. Yeah, when he was incarcerated in Michigan, I think. This another picture, Dirty Red, Detroit Red right here. Now, what you gonna see here is a couple pictures of Malcolm X when he was younger, when he was a kid. Look how beautiful that smile is. Look how handsome he was. This is a handsome man. And this is Malcolm X when he was a toddler. Man, this him. They say when he was going to school, he was an excellent student, straight A. Here go another picture of Malcolm X as a youth. Now, I just wanted to show those pictures before we get into it, because like I said, I used to man, every time I got a book, if it had any sort of, photos in it, I go straight to the photos, and it felt like it connected me before I even started reading. Now I look at the photos. They say sometimes a picture could say 1,000 words, and it kind of, like it's almost like the picture living, like it speaks to you. And then when you read about that person on top of that, it kind of made it all stick for me. So like I was saying, my understanding of Malcolm X when I was younger, like he was locked up, one of the worst of the worst. And, he was petty crook that did petty crimes. They used to call it around my way po hustling sometimes. That's what I thought of him. I thought I thought he was uncivilized until he wound up getting with the Nation of Islam. But lo and behold, I was wrong in my assumptions of him. So let me start by giving a little bit of background. Malcolm X was born, and I want to say 1925, in May of 1925. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska, the son of Earl Little and Louise Little. Let me add, Louise is a good name. My great-grandmother name is Anna Louise. My mother's name was Louise, but she switched it to Lisa. I mess with her sometime and I call her Louise all the time because I like the name. I love the name, actually. I don't know if y'all familiar with Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was the face and founder of the United Negro Improvement Association. And what that was, they called them the Garveyites. It was the first movement here in America of blacks organizing and teaching them about self-pride, self-reliance, going out there and gaining do your own work, and not allowing people to degrade you and undermine you. That's what Earl Little was a part of. And he came up against challenges with the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacist groups, or maybe Ku Klux Klan was the one back then that you could blanket everything in. But he wound up having to move from spot to spot. But wherever he was at, he organized. He taught blacks to do for self. And Malcolm X used to travel with him. And like I said before, I used to look at Malcolm X like he learned all his stuff, when he went to jail and bumped into the Nation of Islam. But that in fact wasn't true. He actually was a civilized man that had teachings of discipline and self-reliance and black pride from his father, who was a well-known organizer and pastor who spoke black power. And when I say black power, I don't mean, take over the world, black people. I mean that we have power within ourselves. We have, our own gird, that we could pick ourselves up by the bootstrap, that we are somebody. We ain't, the depiction of what they call us. We're not lazy. We actually work hard. We actually do for self. We actually have the ability to think and to shine with our intellect as well as our physical prowess. And these are some of the things that Garvey bestowed upon his father, which in return, Earl Little bestowed on his family. And when I heard the story, it rang eerily similar to the same story that Malcolm X had. his father was unfortunately murdered. They say could have been an assassination, if you will. He was pushed off a streetcar, and his body was cut in half. And at 6 years old, I imagine the effect that that had on Malcolm X. Because even if you were bright and brilliant, knowing that your father was murdered at the hands of, anti-black Ku Klux Klan type groups, that would do something to you. That's very traumatic, and that would affect how you viewed the world after that, and how you adjusted, and how you interacted with others. Because I've known friends of mine who they had their life taken, and it affected me, and it had a spell over me and like a cloud over me for years and years and years, and it took me a while to work myself. I couldn't get out of it, and I didn't even know it was over me. I just felt in a funk. So just imagine the strength of your life, your father, your teacher, like when that's taken away from you, and it said it had an effect on his whole family. Like his whole family, his mother wound up having a mental breakdown, and she was institutionalized in the mental facility into her dying days. And so just imagine at 6 years and a little bit after that, you no longer have your mother, which is a strong impact in the child's in the child's life, and you no longer have your father, and they placing you in foster homes. That's enough to that's enough to break anyone, let alone a child. And I think he had quite a few siblings, and this is what they had to go through. So I think they moved from Omaha when his father was still alive. From Omaha, Nebraska, they wound up moving to Lansing, Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. And in Lansing, Michigan, I think that's where his father was killed. And then, his mother was raising him, trying to do the best she could. But I think things started to fall apart. And I think one of his sisters or his aunts wind up, I think, taking him to Chicago and allowing him to live there. And that's when he started getting introduced into the street life, or, criminality. It wasn't country boy living no more. But, my assumptions of him was that he was just a regular street criminal. But from, the testimonies of others, they say he was one of the brightest. Even when he was in school, they say he was exceptional amongst, all the white students. I think he was in some sort of boarding school. They say he was exceptional as a student, but he had behavior problems, which were probably due to his mother being committed to a mental institution or his father being murdered. So that goes without saying. But everyone spoke of his bright spirit and his bright intellect. Even when he got into the streets, they spoke of how smart he was, how articulate he was, how magnetic he was. That they was one guy said, you know, when Malcolm X came around, he used to be a con man, so to speak. And they say, man, by the time he finished speaking, by the time you finish hanging with him, you would be enthusiastic about giving him every dollar you had. You wouldn't look at it as if he was conning you. You would look at it like you doing something for him, and you would be enthusiastic. And when I heard that, I know some people who fit that characteristic, man. They brilliant. They stand out. They bright. They got that charisma, gift of gab. And he was never mediocre at anything he did. He was always brilliant. So I think he wound up getting locked up for burglary, breaking and entering. It was him and I think one or two white women, and I think it was like two other black guys. It was something like that, and I think they wound up getting caught. He had pawned off something, then wound up trying to get it back, and wound up getting sentenced to, I want to say, around 20 years or something like that. And I think his brothers were already intertwined with the Nation of Islam. Let me give you a breakdown of the Nation of Islam. Not a full breakdown. Elijah Muhammad, W.D. Ford. Uh, I think W.D. Ford he came up with it, passed it down to Elijah Muhammad. Now, Elijah Muhammad, he's also connected to the Marcus Garvey movement, the United Negro Improvement Association. He was also a member. That's a connect right there. I never knew that. I never knew that. But you can see the connection right there. And Malcolm X committed himself to the Islamic faith of the Nation of Islam. And he excelled. He excelled while he was in prison, got the recognition of higher ups. And when he got home, he continued to ascend and be a bright star like he always was all his life. Now, he rose up the ranks. He instituted a lot of things that he learned from his father, Earl Little, who was a pastor and an organizer. At the time of Malcolm X's interest into the Nation of Islam, I think they had a total membership of perhaps 400 members. With his tenure there, they grew in membership. He added in the newspaper that they had. I think he added in the discipline as well. And I think he added in the Fruit of Islam, which is like the military or security apparatus of the Nation of Islam, which, the men, the guys, the soldiers, the ones who protect, the ones who make sure everything's okay. When he was in Harlem and he raised his finger and everybody stopped and turned and left on the drop of a dime, those were the Fruit of Islam. And I just think that man was very powerful. He was very powerful. He was very magnetic. And he was very fascinating as a child. When I read about him, I always connected to him. I always revered him. And then Spike Lee dropped that movie and gave a visual. I think Spike Lee did an excellent thing with that. That was a good documentary of, well, autobiography or whatever you want to call it. Excellent movie with Denzel Washington actually played Malcolm X. That movie was spot on. So if y'all, may not want to read about Malcolm X, y'all go check out Spike Lee's Malcolm X movie. Excellent, brilliant. That joint was spot on. From seeing it and what I read and what I know, and even after I did later research, some of that stuff was in that movie and it just went over my head at the time because I was young. Y'all go check that movie out, man. Spike Lee, Malcolm X, starring Denzel Washington. Excellent movie. But as he grew with the Nation of Islam, I think there was opposition within. I think they no longer seen eye to eye. I'm fast forwarding through a lot of this stuff, but he wind up falling out with the Nation of Islam, with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and was getting death threats from them. Some of his own brothers that he taught himself, some of the people that he raised, because a lot of the things that were instituted that we actually see of the Nation of Islam actually come from Malcolm X himself putting that in there, creating these things for the Nation of Islam. And when I just thought about it, that was kind of where I was last week when I was like, it's the ones close to you. Because what he wound up dying from is the hands of members of the Nation of Islam. He was actually killed by his own. And, I don't know all the details involved with it, whether the FBI was involved with it or, these ABC groups, these letter boys. But what I do know that when somebody said, get your hands out my pocket, those were actually people that he may have knew. Those was his people, his own people. So, man, it just reminded me of E2 Brute, get your enemies too close. But what I also thought about when I was thinking about Malcolm X, I thought of how his life paralleled his father's life, because his father was also a minister. He was also a pastor. His father's house was also firebombed. His father was also killed. And Malcolm X died in 65. I want to say it was in April or March. But he wound up dying maybe March. Maybe it was in March. Maybe 2 months shy of his 40th birthday. I'm 48 right now. And I just think about how powerful he was at the age of 40. He didn't even reach 40. He was 39 years old when he passed. And just his brilliance, his greatness, that we now speak of him, he died in 65. Here it is, 2026. That's 61 years. And we still speak of him like he alive and well. We keep his name alive. And it's just magnificent. And, I hope y'all appreciate it. Me sharing my thoughts and my research. The couple pictures that I could scrape up off the internet of Malcolm X. He was a great man. He meant a lot to me and a lot of other people in my generation. I don't know how much he means. I don't even know how much, people of this generation know about the man and, what he fostered, what he spoke of, his contributions to our community. But with that, I'm about to wrap it up, man. I had to give it up for y'all, man. It's Black History Month, so I had to do my due diligence. I had to get y'all something. That's a part of the tradition that I came up on. The Black History Month, you get up and you salute those who laid it down for you, who came before you and paved the way. So with that, I'm out of here, man. Here I come to save the day. It's King Sam, the people's champ. And this is Let's Get To It. And that's a tour with a U, because I always got you in mind. So keep that in mind. And I'm out of here, y'all.